seen, twice, seen, twice, seen, twice, but not the same.
Opening sequence. 2 images, 1 room.
At first, this looks like a mistake. The same woman appears twice. The same dress, the same chair, the same room. 2 photographs side by side, almost identical. But they were not made for ordinary looking. One image was meant for the left eye, the other for the right. Your 2 eyes do not see the world from exactly the same place. They stand a few centimeters apart, so each eye receives a slightly different world. A stereograph copies that difference. Look closely, and the 2 halves are not truly identical. A shoulder shifts, a chair moves by a fraction, a face turns slightly, a hand, a glass, a fold of fabric. Each may sit in a slightly different position. That small difference is the mechanism. If the 2 pictures were exactly the same, there would be no depth, only duplication. The stereoscope needs difference. It turns difference into space. Without the viewer, the card looks repetitive. Inside the stereoscope, the 2 images lock together. The repetition disappears. A flat photograph becomes a small, 3-dimensional room. The chair moves forward. The curtain falls back. The table, the mirror, the body, the dress, all begin to occupy space. This was not cinema. It did not move, but it offered something strangely close to what later 3D images would promise. Not just a picture, but the sensation of presence. And that is why these images matter, because again and again inside this small optical room, there is a woman, reading, dressing, laughing, posing, drinking, playing, waiting, looking back. Sometimes she seems respectable, sometimes comic, sometimes intimate, sometimes openly erotic. But this film is not only about what these women show, it is about what the stereoscope does to the image. It does not simply place a woman on a card, it places her in depth, not merely before the viewer, but almost within reach.
Chapter 1. The Respectable Device.
The stereoscope was not born as a forbidden machine. It entered the 19th century home as culture, as education, as travel, as science made domestic. A family could sit in a parlor and look at Rome, Cairo, Niagara Falls, a battlefield, a museum, a mountain pass, all without leaving the room. The card was small, the device was simple, but the promise was enormous. To look through a stereoscope was to be transported. This is important because it would be too easy to treat these images only as secret or illicit. They were not. Stereographs were sold, collected, cataloged, stored in cabinets, displayed in homes, and advertised as respectable objects of knowledge and amusement. The stereoscope belonged to the same world as books, maps, albums, framed prints, and parlor games. It was not outside respectable culture, it was inside it. But that is exactly where the tension begins. Because respectability does not cancel desire. Sometimes it organizes it. Sometimes it gives desire a frame, a furniture, a table, a velvet chair, a curtain, a cabinet, a proper optical device. The viewer could say, I am looking at art. I am looking at travel. I am looking at a scene. I am looking at a photograph. And still, the act of looking was private. The stereoscope had to be brought close to the face. The outside room disappeared. The card became a small interior for one pair of eyes. This was a respectable device, but it made looking intimate. And once a woman entered that little optical room, the question changed. Not only, what is she doing, but what kind of looking has this machine made possible?
Chapter 2. The Woman Elsewhere.
Before the stereoscope shows the woman undressed, it often shows her occupied, reading, sewing, playing music, looking at a letter, leaning over a chessboard, listening to someone else. These are not scandalous images. They belong to the language of culture, domestic refinement, education, leisure, and controlled femininity. A woman with a book is not presented as a danger. A woman at the piano is not presented as indecent. A woman sewing is not presented as erotic. At least not directly. But these images create a very particular situation for looking. The woman is present, but her attention is elsewhere. She does not necessarily invite the viewer. She does not always return the gaze. She is absorbed in an action that gives the scene its excuse. The book permits looking. The piano permits looking. The sewing permits looking. The game permits looking. This is important because absorption can look like privacy. A woman reading appears to belong to herself. A woman thinking appears unavailable. A woman listening, writing, or playing seems enclosed in her own moment. And yet the photograph has arranged that moment for us. We should not mistake the pose for documentary truth. These women may not be reading. They may not be playing. They may not be lost in thought. They are performing absorption. But the performance matters. It gives the viewer a way to look without feeling that looking is the subject. The stereoscope intensifies this arrangement. The table moves forward. The book has weight. The chair occupies space. The woman seems to sit not on a flat card, but inside a room that opens privately before the eyes. This is not yet open eroticism. It is quieter than that. It is the erotics of attention displaced. The woman is elsewhere, and because she is elsewhere, the viewer is allowed to stay.
For more hard-to-explain photographs, subscribe to Reading Frames.